Well, here are pictures you sent into our eyewitness portal. We'll begin with this one from Shogbamu village in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, showing voters going in to cast their vote in an old building. From Ojumele Shagamu in Ogun State comes this picture showing voters exercising their franchise despite the scorching sun. This next picture from Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, shows voters waiting for counting of votes after casting their ballot. And from Minna in Niger State comes this photo of Sam Nda Isaiah, an ex-presidential aspirant, casting his vote with the caption, "I've cast my vote." In Yemetu Alawada in Ibadan, Oyo State capital, where this photo comes from, our eyewitness reporter says they are about to collate their ballot papers. Also is this photo from Pt.2 in Lagos State. Voters can be seen waiting to start counting after casting their votes. From Accra, Ghana comes this photo of a viewer who says he's monitoring the whole election process on Channels Television. And finally is this picture from Okumagba Wari in Delta State. Our eyewitness reporter who sent this in says there was a massive turnout of voters to participate in the election process. I would like to thank you for sending in these pictures, and please keep more coming. Staying with the polls, Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka has been speaking about his assessment of the 2015 general elections. In an exclusive interview with Channels Television at his Ogun State residence in southwest Nigeria, Professor Soyinka gave the electoral body INEC a pass mark. However, he believes some issues should be corrected in future.
The 2015 general elections are almost over, and almost everyone has an opinion on how things have played out so far, including poet, playwright, and Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka. In an exclusive interview with Channels Television at his Ogun State residence, Professor Soyinka applauded the peace accord signed by President Jonathan and the President-elect Muhammadu Buhari, saying that was an example of how leaders should behave, but was also very critical of those who see the peace accord as nothing but a piece of paper.
There's no question at all that a peace accord of that nature set a marvelous example. The problem is that you have people high up for whom such a peace accord is just a piece of paper. Those who actually rig the elections are ultimately not the followers, but the middle leaders. And by that, I'm referring specifically to some governors, to ministers, some of whom have been caught red-handed, manipulating the votes, and in a most blatant and criminal way. But the two main contestants did set an excellent example, and that is the way true leaders should behave.
Professor Soyinka also gave INEC a pass mark on the electoral process so far, and just below 40% on democracy in the country.
I would give INEC a pass mark. Now, there are one or two issues about the system which I think can be taken care of. Where, for instance, should there be a separation of time between accreditation and actually voting? A number of people have voiced the same thing, and this just has to be corrected. If you're talking about election, pass mark. If you're talking about democracy, I'm afraid we're still somewhere below 40%.
The Nobel laureate has never been one to mince words, and he certainly didn't when it came to condemning what had happened in Rivers State in the just concluded presidential elections there.
And there's no question in my mind at all that what happened in Rivers State during the presidential and assembly elections were a complete atrocity. And the finger points definitely are the kind of middle characters I'm talking about. Elections are supposed to enable us to avoid response in violence to misgovernance. You know, you wait. When you're dissatisfied, when your rights have been abused, citizens wait for that moment when they can exercise their voices. And then some bunch of criminals calling themselves governors, calling themselves generals, calling themselves ministers, they conspire and thwart the will of the people.
Professor Soyinka rounded up the conversation with a few words, saying that despite the fact that elections cannot be perfect, INEC would need to address the clear and present issues in order to restore confidence to the electorate. Cynthia Rare, Channels Television News.
Well, the governorship and House of Assembly elections in most parts of Lagos went on smoothly and peacefully. Our correspondent, Loretta Chiogo, reports that there was a low turnout of voters at most polling units in the state, while the card reader was not a major issue.
This is Ward C in Apapa here in Lagos. The number of registered voters for this particular polling unit is given as 1,002, but only 188 have come out to be accredited, and that is the number that would be given the opportunity to cast their ballot. Accreditation starts as early as 8 a.m. The process is seamless and peaceful in most areas of Lagos. However, unlike the presidential election, there are concerns about voter apathy in Alimosho, Oshodi, Isolo, Mushin, Pt.2, Lagos Island, some parts of Mushin and Apapa, where one of the main contenders in the race in Lagos State cast his ballot.
There are many people who still believe, for example, that their votes won't count. And then they ask, if my votes are not going to count, why should I go through the stress of joining the queue? Now, our job is to, or the political class and the electorate are supposed to work together to ensure that you are able to convince people that their votes count.
Some people stayed back because they felt that there will be violence, and because of the build-up of elections where we have had people exchange words and also people making underestimates.
It's a mixed bag in Ikorodu and in Ekpe, as the turnout of voters is impressive.
INEC has been impressive thus far. There's a major improvement against what happened 2 weeks ago. The card reader machine generally across the division and even in the states, they have worked more than what it was 2 weeks ago.
The most significant thing is the confidence in the system. People came out leisurely, the anxiety was less. So there's a confidence in the system that, you know what, my vote will count. It's gone quite well here. Initially, you thought it was slow but not low.
The Lagos State Governor, Babatunde Fashola, however, plays down the low turnout of voters.
If that is the case, it is perhaps then possible, and I stress the word possible, that in those places where INEC was there on time, right, in those places, people may have accredited long before you and I came, and that perhaps what we were used to, long queues, that we did not see in those places, and I stress that word, in those places, because we don't know how widespread it is, right? If we didn't meet long queues, we are perhaps then disposed to jump into the conclusion that, oh, people didn't come out. When in fact, in those kind of places, they've come out, they've accredited themselves, and they got back.
In another development, this old man at Ward C in Apapa longs to cast his vote, but he's been disallowed. He came after accreditation had ended. Earlier the same ward, party agents demanded that campaign posters and banners be taken off before the voting process began. At the time of this report, counting of votes had commenced and results announced at the local government levels. Loretta Chiogo, Channels Television News.
And reports from Ebonyi State indicate that the chairman of the People's Democratic Party in Isielu local government area of the state, Mr. Emeka Nworie, has been killed by suspected political thugs. Police spokesperson Chris Anyanwu confirmed to Channels Television that Mr. Nworie was attacked in his house in Ezagu, where he was shot severally until he died. Mr. Anyanwu says the incident took place at around 3 a.m. The attackers had asked for money from their victim, which was given to them, after which they gunned him down. Ebonyi State has had its share of political violence in the run-up to the 2015 elections. Only recently, 2 people were killed in Ikwo over a clash between the supporters of the PDP and Labour Party. Now, what would have turned into a bloodbath was today averted when suspected hoodlums visited some polling units around Agor Palace Way, Lagos, wreaking havoc. The thugs were said to have disrupted the voting process, emptying the contents of the ballot boxes into the gutters. Our correspondent, Chris Lems, reports.
The election is peaceful in most of the polling units here in Lagos West Senatorial District. This seeming peace is shattered when hoodlums decide to forcefully bring the process to an end in some polling units in Agor Palace Way. Some of the eyewitnesses recount their experience.
I was talking to somebody, said I didn't look them. So unfortunately, I just hear bah, bah, bah. They are throwing something and beat out these boxes. Then from there, I look around. So what is happening, you boys? Then from there, the other one say, Baba, go your house. I said, go my house. Who are you? Because I don't know them.
On the queue, when it remained, I was just 6 people to vote. That was when these 2 people just came from nowhere and they strike. They started saying that who is there? Nothing is happening. Everybody should go. And they kicked the polling box inside the gutter. And the 2 policemen that were with us, they couldn't do anything. Many people ran, everybody ran away. Even the INEC officers, they ran away.
Whilst sorting out the leftovers at Bangbala, the police receives a distress call from voters at Nwachuku Street, claiming they were being chased away from the polling units there. On our arrival, the unit is almost empty, except for a few persons trading words. Another victim here speaks on his encounter.
So that I can sit by the side. They want to talk to the INEC. I said, why? Is that the way it's done? They said, if I don't go out, they won't deal with me. Their boys started beating me, pushing me out of the polling booth.
In this age and time, it is imperative to note that all must be given the freedom to express their franchise, regardless of political leanings. Chris Lems, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, EU Chief Observer commends INEC, says Nigeria's democracy is gaining root. To stay with us.